I'm getting. Well, not exactly sure what happened there.
Forgot to
figure
remove
it out
it
as
from
we
the,
go.
forgot to
What's
remove
that?
It from the intro. Forgot to remove it from the intro.
Oh, it plays automatically.
Yeah, it's automatic.
Well, I mean, I don't see many people in the room right now, so let's
Guys,
try it. Let's
wanna
try
restart
it from the top so the people. No, keep it going. So the people will see what the new show format is going to have. Ready? So it's going to live to me. Here I am. Welcome to the 21 Gun Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Sullivan. With us, as always, is Frank in the studio. This week, we'll be talking about Pat Tillman, from his unlikely success in the gridiron to his tragic end in the mountains of Afghanistan.
Okay, that was better.
That worked out good.
It did.
I liked it. I liked
Good
it
job.
very much. We'll just make sure no one watches the beginning.
Again.
I'll cut it out in post. That's what we say in the business. Here's the thing, right? I wanted to do Pat Tillman initially as the first episode for a couple of reasons. Let's go back in time. I'm considering joining the military. You got to weigh a lot of options. You know, you're like, I was like 24. I didn't really like my career, but I liked where I lived. You know, all my family was in New England. I was in New England, friends. And I'm sure you guys felt the same. Well, I don't know. We'll find out what your backstories are too.
Yep.
But when it came time to go, it was like, whew, am I making the right choice? I mean, this is, especially when you go in aviation, you're signing up for 6 years right off the bat. So I was obviously nervous and making sure that I made the right decision. And then I got in and I was in aviation school, navigator school, and 18 hours a day, aviation books. I didn't know the first thing about flying airplanes. Like, they actually let me into the aviation world, and I had never even touched a Cessna. That's how crazy, I guess, it is in the military. But there I am studying, and I'm like, again, I'm kind of homesick. I don't know anyone yet. I'm just in my barracks. I'm just studying. And then I see on the news, I'm watching the news, Pat Tillman walks away from a $3.6 million contract to join the Army Rangers.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, suck it up. I walked away from a $32,000 a year job into a $32,000 a year job. So it was like, I always used him as like, man, if this guy can do it and give up what he gave up, then I absolutely can do it. So I always felt that kind of connection to him.
Right.
How about you? Did you give up anything when you went in, or because you went in young, right?
No.
Oh.
I joined late. I joined at 23.
Okay. Same sort of
so
age.
For me, it was, I didn't give up anything. What I did was, I gave up on mediocrity because I wasn't doing anything. I had gotten out of a couple trade schools. I was licensed clerk typist.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was a clerk typist.
You're like Forrest Gump. You are. You're like, and then I was in the White House.
I was a clerk typist. I was typing like 80, 90 words a minute. Just like one of the best like administrative assistants you'd ever see. But I was also a apprentice / journeyman electrician.
Okay.
At the same time. But nobody was hiring. The union in Connecticut sucked. So I called my dad. I was like, well, what do you think I should do? And he's like, well, you always liked the military. And I was like, okay. So I didn't want to do the Army because that's what my dad did. I don't look good in white, so I didn't want to do the Navy. Plus the whole like black person water swim thing kind of came into play.
I mean, technically you joined the Navy, but we won't do that this time.
Just split hairs. And then, so I wanted to do Air Force. But they never got back to me because I only had a GED at the time.
Okay.
So I took the ASVAB, and then they wanted to talk to me.
Okay.
Because I had a very good score.
I'm saying, we're going back to Forrest Gump. He ended up being, no, he was never smart, was he? I'm not a smart man.
So, and then, but no one was ever there. But the Marine Corps recruiter was there every day. Every day, dude was like, come talk to me. And I was like, no, man, they said you guys are crazy. There's no way I'm doing it. So then I made the dumbest bet ever. I told this man, Gunnery Sergeant Fletcher, I told him to his face. I said, if you can convince because I was my mother's baby boy.
Okay.
I said, if you can convince my mother that I should join the crazy Marines, I'll join. I'll sign. So what happens? This man talks to my mother for 5 minutes.
Told her how much she's going to save in grocery bills each week.
And then she came out, she was like, get your ass in there and sign that paperwork.
Wow.
That was that.
And then someday you became a recruiter and did the same thing to someone else's baby boy.
Sure did.
Jeremy, was your, if I remember, Jeremy, yours is kind of like, get me the heck out of here, right?
Yeah. So as you guys know, I'm a twin. I have a little brother, a little sister. Mom was a single parent. It was basically me raising my little brother, little sister, and getting to the point of like, I don't want to be stuck at home like everybody else. And I grew up around Marines my entire life, and all I've known was military. And God forbid I chose any other branch. The one time I told my mom I was going to go in the Army, she chased me out of the house swinging a baseball bat to try to break my legs. So, and if I could get that crazy woman on here, she'd tell you the exact same thing. But military was all I knew. So I needed to get away. I needed some kind of structure. I was working 2 jobs as a teenager, trying to support a family. I was like, yep, it's time to go. I got to do something for myself. Plus, I really wanted to join and fight. So I really had that sense of like motardism, and I was ready to go.
Well, yeah. And the other thing, so the first one is making that step and breaking away. And again, the story is about Pat Tillman. So he stepped away from a $3.6 million contract, lucrative career. I mean, did he have Hall of Fame numbers? No, but did he have a level of fame and freedom that I mean, it's when you look back on it, it makes you wonder or really respect the character of the man to do that. Because I would like to think if September 11th happened and I was an NFL player, I would join, but probably not.
Yeah.
Most likely, yeah, I wouldn't. Not, I mean, and I don't know. I don't fault anyone else who didn't. I mean, it's a tough decision. America's military, it's a different breed, probably starting around, well, I would say after you washed out all the draftees. So after the draft ended and those guys disappeared and it became an all volunteer force, the breed of soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, it was different. And that's also the second thing I want to bring up about Pat Tillman. In researching him, he went against the grain all the way through. Like when he ended up making millions of dollars, he was still driving a beat up pickup truck, and he would park it next to like Bentleys. He would ride a beach bicycle. What were those called? Beach cruisers with flip flops to the stadium.
Beachcombers, I think they're called, whatever.
He would climb up onto the stadium lights after practice and just sit up there and read like Emerson or can't remember all the fancy authors, but he would read a lot of like classics. So he was definitely against the grain, but it made me think a lot of people assume that if you join the military, you're kind of like a squared away dude. No. You're like, get me in the place where everything will be in lines and I'll have a schedule. And I would think, and again, this is why I'm going back to that post 9/11, really post draft, what we'll call mid 90s service. You got a lot of people who did go against the grain.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to the people that I flew with. They all had quirks. There were a few, using an old term, squares. But for the most part, I think the military really takes people who are just different. Just they don't flow. What's that? They don't swim with the school. They kind of go off, which is weird because it's when you think back to like World War II and everything, and everyone served. It was like, geez, everyone goes to church on Sunday. Everybody goes to school. Everybody serves in the military, to a thing where only a few go. Yeah. And then, I remember being in high school and you'd hear the upperclassmen, oh, did you hear so-and-so went to the Army Rangers or the Navy SEALs? And it was like, whoa, that dude's different. A lot of people, I guess, not a lot, I guess in those days, a small percentage enlisted, but for the most part, it's a rare thing.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you look at it now. When you look at the percent, and I used to think it was a joke when like recruiters would always say, tell you this like oh, well, it's less than 1%, and then like in the Marines it's less than that, and blah 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 blah. And I would think like, okay, cool sales line. No, it's actually true. Like as big as the military is within these United States, it's still like a small drop in the bucket compared to the overall population.
Tiny, yeah.
And as far as like, I'll take, and I don't want to generalize, so I'll take my MOSs that I've been involved in, that being combat engineer for the Marines, Marine Corps recruiter, combat engineer for the Army, and EOD for the Army. All of those, that's where you get what I like to call awkward elevators, the odd ducks, like the weird guys, because you're literally saying, I want to play with things that go boom all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
So you're going to get your people that are not quite wrapped too tight. So, but it takes that person to do what needs to be done. I always find that, and I don't know if you can attest to this. I know Jeremy probably can, and I know some of our listeners can, that are veterans. The guys that are always like moto, like, oh, let's go. I want to be infantry. I want to go. Those are the guys that hide and cower first. You don't see them actually doing the heroic thing. It's always that one unopposing guy that that's taking a pill box, or that's
what was Audie Murphy, 5'4" or something?
It's always the most like Desmond Dawes, like the dude.
Desmond Dawes, yeah.
Like it's those people that have just something within them that's greater than the sum of all their parts put together.
Right.
And it's that amazing thing within them that you get. So you get your Benavidez, you get your Desmond Dawes, you get your Audie Murphys, you get these guys that even in the room, they don't say anything. Someone else has to tell their story.
They paint the picture of a situation that just goes to hell very quickly. And then one person, for whatever reason, some sort of intrinsic value in them or intrinsic character trait just goes out and says, well, okay, everything's going to hell right now. I'm going to do what I have to do because what else is the option, right? Yep. There's no other option. And they go out and do it. Situations, but the ones that do, and you see them, they're very like Clinton Romashaw. I've met a few times up at Burbiz, and
you wouldn't know.
Yeah, he's got a big beard. He looks like he should be chopping down a tree somewhere. Very mild mannered. Doesn't. And this brings me into the next point. So Americans have an idea, and it could be, well, I would say it is. It's from Hollywood, an idea. And we used to talk about this, Jeremy, a lot back when we did the shows for IW. Hey, a little shout out to IW. When we did shows for them, I just lost my train of thought right in the middle of my sentence because I looked at my shirt. What was I saying?
You were.
I'm just going to flat out own it.
Talk about the ideas of like.
Oh, right. Yeah. So America has this idea that I don't know. They watch Jack Reacher, or what's the one with Chris Pratt? He's a Navy SEAL with a brain tumor, and he's like he's on a
terminal list.
Terminal list. They see stuff like that, and they're like, those are the real heroes. Those are the real guys that go out and do it. And it's like, man, we've talked about this on the show before, and we'll talk about it a lot in the future. Those are the guys too. And in the modern age with YouTube and all these YouTube operators, look, I know a bunch of them, and most of them are legit. The ones who are legit usually aren't as
verbose.
Yeah, as verbose as the ones that are marketing themselves, which again, we'll get into that. But again, people see that and they say, oh, that's who these guys are. And so then you have someone like Pat Tillman who leaves his career, joins the Army Rangers, and everyone goes, that's John Wayne, right? That's Audie Murphy.
Yeah.
That's Chris Pratt and the Terminal. That's who that guy is. And then when something happened to him, that's who they wanted, right? They didn't want a complicated person.
Right.
They didn't want an atheist, anti-Iraq war veteran. They wanted Uncle Sam, They wanted the all-American kid who got killed because it fits their image. And that's super, super damaging, as we'll see later on, to the families.
Oh yeah.
So you have the American public that wants to paint a picture.
Don't get ahead of the story, Duke. We're getting
Yeah.
he put it in Tim Kennedy. I was like, don't get ahead of the story.
Don't worry.
We're getting there.
So yeah, that's if you haven't had a chance to check out the Anti-Hero podcast, that it's 3 hours, 6 hours, because 2 episodes. And I listened to it and I was like, I'll keep an open mind. And then when he brought his team members in to talk about it, I was like, man, that's bad. That's really bad, but it's damaging. It's damaging because you might ask any veteran out there if they feel comfortable when someone shakes their hand and says, thank you for your service. None of us do. No. It's always like, now
it's the most awkward thing.
It is awkward. I'll appreciate it. Well, I don't even say I appreciate it, but I will be kind back and say, it was someone told me once to say the quote from Fury, best damn job I ever had. I know it's not bad. It was a good job.
I just say thank you for the support and I keep it pushing.
Yeah, I guess that's another thing. Or I say, I never know, because thank you for your service. You're welcome. Like, I want to say that. You're welcome. You're welcome for my sacrifice. No, it's like, no problem. I enjoyed it. Whatever. But yeah, so that's where you get that awkwardness, because Chappie's not in the room with us and he's barking in the other room. Yeah. I wonder if he wants to come in.
He's not at the door yet. For
those just joining us for the first time, Chappie is a poodle that usually sits right here, but he decided to stay out with my in-laws in the other room. He won't be joining us. So
the thing that I think that America needs to understand is what made Pat Tillman, in this sense, like, I think people have a warped view of like, oh, well, he just joined the military. No. He did a little bit more than that. So first of all, let's say he wasn't that blue chip NFL player, but he was a pretty darn good NFL player in his own right. A couple Pro Bowls, so on and so forth. But the fact that he got drafted, because I don't think people understand how rare it is just to get drafted into the NFL, regardless of the round.
Oh yeah,
get to.
You're not making it to the NFL. Sorry,
super rare just to get into the NFL.
Just get invited to practice.
Right. Like, this man made it, and then for them to offer him that level of a contract at the time, is huge for his position.
Well, let's go back. So he was small. I think it was 5'10", maybe 5'11", under 200 pounds. He will
tell you here.
He was great. I got it in my notes somewhere, but I don't know. Anyways, he's
5'11", 202 pounds.
Okay. So not a big guy when you're playing defense. He recorded some pretty good stats. Again, I'll read them later on, but I
got them right here.
Okay. Let's hear.
So for his career, 60 games played, 374 tackles, 276 solo tackles, 98 assists, 2.5 sacks per his career, 3 interceptions for 37 yards. His longest one was for 27 yards, 3 forced fumbles and 3 fumble recoveries.
And remember, his career was only 3 years, I think, in the NFL. 3 years.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4 years. Okay. He's 24. I think that's the other thing too. He's my age. It's another reason why when I heard his story, I'm like, this dude's my age, walking away from more money. If he can do it, I can do it.
Yep.
So that connection, I don't know. When I heard his story, it made me feel better as a service member during the time of war. Like, I was like, am I doing the right thing? I'm like, if this dude's doing it. And that's really what a leader is. Someone that says, look, not even look what I can, you just follow what they did. And you say to yourself, if he can do it, I can do it. And
I'm sorry. He was a defensive player.
Yeah.
He also returned 3 kickoffs for 33 yards.
Oh, that's right. He was special teamed initially.
So
let's go back to that aspect of his character. So he was small. He got a slot on Arizona State. He did awesome, obviously. I don't know how many pros, maybe 1 or 2 that season actually ended up, I think he got drafted real late, but ended up going pro. So he had a commitment and a sense of duty to Arizona because Arizona gave him the chance to play football. When the Cardinals took him, the same thing happened, right? He was redshirted, but he always went out there. He hit people like a freight train and then helped them up. He worked hard and he physically earned his spot on the team. After I think it was his third year, the Rams, just off a Super Bowl, tried to pick him up for $9 million, right? So he turned him down. Why?
Because he wanted to stay in Arizona.
Because Arizona gave him the chance.
Yep.
So he turned down $9 million for a $3.6 million contract. Again, it's huge money, even for 20 some odd years ago.
What people don't. So what I need people to understand is already that level of loyalty that he's showing.
I know, it's amazing.
Is already something that, and we'll get into this. The unit he went to and the MOS he went to, that's the intrinsic thing they look for, is that level of sacrifice and loyalty. And he already encompassed it.
Right.
So him being the already physical stud he was, it's no wonder he went to the units he went to.
Yeah. So he joined and he got a contract into the 75th, 2nd Ranger Battalion, 75th Regiment, which is really the only one, but for some reason they break it up like that, because regiments don't exist anymore, do they? Except for the 75th.
I think it's just battalions now.
Yeah.
Bats, I think.
So, and which is a special forces group. I'm sorry, special operations. You got to get it right for the Army people, which isn't a very big unit, right? The Green Berets, there's thousands of them. I think I was talking to a Green Beret when I was down in Texas, one of the guys I work with down there. And I'm going to make up a number because whatever it was like 3,000, 6,000. I don't remember, but there was quite a few Green Berets. I looked up, the Ranger Battalion only has, and the number could be wrong, but it was less than 1,000 Rangers. And the jobs are totally different, right? Green Beret goes in, they insert with a local community, train them up. I think that's what they do. The Ranger Regiment is, we need to take that town, get this high value target, and leave it smoldering. And they'll be like, we'll do it. They go in with all their high speed gear and very impressive unit.
And in some cases, low speed gear.
Yeah. Why? I agree.
Because, we have X-rays or 19 X-rays, 18 X-rays that would sometimes get attached to them, like EOD guys that would get attached to some of these guys. And they would do just like, we call them pop and drops. Like they go to an area and it's like, okay, well, we'll come back to this later. So like, here's a piece of C4 and a piece of just pop it, drop it, or mark it, or mark and goes. Like, so they'll mark an explosive device and keep it moving, and then tell somebody else behind to come clean it up. Or they'll just be like, oh, this is here. Okay, cool. C4, little,
just blow it up,
go and just keep it moving, and then it just blows up behind them.
Okay.
So, like I said, low speed gear at the same time.
That makes sense. They keep it simple.
Yep.
Get the job done. So let's go back to continue telling the story. So Americans want their hero to fit in a little box.
Yep.
Not every soldier's perfect. In fact, most soldiers I know are far from perfect.
The best ones are flawed.
And not every story that a soldier finds himself involved with is perfect, especially in a war. Did you know there used to be a law, and this will make sense in a minute. There used to be a law till about 15 years ago that coffins of deceased couldn't be photographed. So like when someone dies, let's say in Iraq, we were actually the first, well, the I don't know what they're called, but whoever's forward deployed packages them up really in their gear. They're not, there's no mortuary or anything like that. They seal them in that box for obvious reasons. We would then pick them up, take them to their next stop, usually, which I'm trying to remember, it's been so long, but we would pick them up, say in, a little airfield in Podunk, Iraq, take them to maybe Kuwait, if I remember correctly. Kuwait had a big airport, and then a C-17 would take them from there straight to Dover. And in some cases, like an IED, it could be 5 or 6 boxes. I think the most we ever carried, because our plane wasn't that big, was 4. But these C-17s, you've seen pictures, where there's 20 caskets, flag draped coffins. They take them over, and press wasn't allowed to photograph that. And that all started during the Iraq War, the first Iraq War.
Right.
This was H.W. Bush, and there's an interview, and I looked all over for it, Jimmy. I couldn't find it, where Barbara Bush, I don't know what they were interviewing about, but they asked him about this, and she said, Americans don't want to see flag draped coffins. And it's like, sure, no one wants to see flag draped coffins, but it's important. It's important to know the truth, right? If you're going to vote and you're going to put a yellow, remember the first Iraq war, everyone had yellow ribbons out. That
Oh,
was
yeah,
like the thing,
everywhere.
or American flags or whatever. If you're going to support the war, then you better know what you're supporting.
Right.
But the stories are sometimes ugly, and the families of the people need to know the truth. They need to see the flag draped coffins. They need to know exactly what happened to them on the battleground. And in Tillman's case, when he met his demise in Afghanistan, it was covered up from the absolute get-go. Literally within minutes of his death, the cover-up began. And that's just, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's unforgivable.
What bothered me, and I remember exactly when this was going on, and then when it happened. What bothered me about it the most was the fact that there was no need for a cover-up. All you had to do was just admit the mistake.
Well,
that would have been
for you or me. If you or me were killed up there, admit the mistake, move on.
Yeah.
But Pat Tillman was probably at the time the most famous soldier that there was. And he didn't want to be treated any differently. In fact, there's a form that you fill out that says, if you die, do you want full military honors? Do you want to be buried at Arlington? Do you want to be? And he said no to everything. And they actually have the form. The parents actually got the form that showed where he explicitly said, I don't want any of this. Not because I'm not patriotic, not because I'm not a patriot, but because I don't want my death to be grabbed onto by politicians, by PR representatives, and have my body or my legacy used as a recruiting tool.
Right. And that's I think the reason I say they shouldn't have tried to, well, one, because they're horrible at cover-ups, but I think, like I said, the honesty, as horrible as it would have been far better than the really crappy cover-up they tried, because the cover-up fell apart almost immediately.
Oh, well, yes and no.
To those that can look and be like,
yeah,
that doesn't make sense.
The people that, and yeah, okay, we'll get into the story then. So Tillman's first deployment was to Iraq in 2003.
Yeah.
He kept a journal, and in his journal, when he was, I think he was on a rooftop or something, and he was watching tanks rolling down the street, he looked around and he said, "This is effing illegal," and he wrote that down.
Yep.
And it's a sentiment. Maybe it's controversial. I happen to agree with it. I remember after my first deployment, I came home and I was like, what are we like? So I spent a year there altogether. And when we would get there, there was no objective. Like, our mission taskings were daily for body retrievals, medevac, supply, air supply, bringing troops in, bringing troops out, all over the AOR, area of operations. But there was no, like, let's say you're standing in the middle of Camp Sather, which is the only one that I stayed in Baghdad, but it's a small one. It doesn't matter. Where's the front line? Well, technically it's right here. It's over there. It's, if you go into the green zone, technically it's right there. Technically it's up. I can't remember the name of the street where all the fighting happened, but there was no front line.
Right.
And without front lines, how do you gauge the success of a war? They tried it in Vietnam, where they're like, well, we'll just cut ears off of people, and every 2 we'll count that as 1 dead. And then from there, we'll just try to kill as many people as possible. It's like, okay, but that's not an objective. Like, how do you claim that objective? There's nobody left to fight. Like, that's impossible. They were coming in through Cambodia. They were coming in through Laos. Like and in this situation, I wasn't a ground pounder, but I don't know what was their benchmark for a successful day. Like, did they do a snatch and grab? Did they kill 50 Al-Qaeda terrorists holed up in a mosque? Like, oh, okay, they were pouring in from Iran. They were pouring in from Syria. They were coming in from all over the place. So like, where do you draw the line? And then the other thing on top of that, so here we are, I'm just one troop, one officer on one aircraft performing one mission at a time. And I had no idea. No one ever told me what our purpose was there. weapons of mass destruction. I never saw one. I don't know if anyone's ever saw one, right? Did they ever find a weapon of mass destruction? No. So it's like, well, how are we supposed to do this and then come home with our heads held high saying we finished the job when there's you never clearly identified what the job was. So I fully agree with him in that situation. I've always agreed with him. I would say early on when Colin Powell was shaking that little vial of whatever it was, remember I think it was supposed to be ricin or something. He's like, they're making this in mobile units and this can kill a city of 100,000 people. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe. I mean, we just had some people blow up our buildings in downtown New York and the Pentagon and a field out in Pennsylvania. Maybe we should go in and get some. And I was a young military member and I wanted to experience combat. So I was all about it. And then it was after that first deployment where I was like, I don't feel good about this. I don't know. You were in Iraq. What did you think?
It was a little different for me because we had a specific mission. Ours was, well, my initial deployment was a little weird in that I don't think anybody knew what was going on. We sat at Camp Matilda. I want to say it was Matilda. It was the one that was in Generation Kill. We sat at that camp.
Okay.
And I watched Safwan Hill get leveled and turn into a parking lot almost to glass level. And then we drove from there to Tikrit and back. Like, that was it. So as far as because the thing was,
you were Army at this time?
This is when I was in the Marines.
Marines, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right.
We were better than we thought we were. It's either we were better than we thought we were, or they were worse than we gave them credit for. Because when we had he had his Red Guard troops or whatever.
Yeah. The Fedayeen,
whatever it was. We were supposed to be support for the units that were forward of us, and they were supposed to go in, do things because we had the 3-pronged attack. It's like left, right in the middle, and we were like supposed to be the support line behind them as they move forward. Well, they were just mowing through everybody at an amazing pace.
They kept telling, they said, keep going. Yeah. A lot of those guys were we're really far north.
We're pulling up, and people are like, hey, they just destroyed everything. We give up. Mm-hmm. So you have admin people, bulk fuel bubbas, mechanics, just we have about 200 prisoners of war. What do you want us to do with them? Because they wouldn't stop following us. Yeah. They wanted to give up.
Was your only deployment that initial invasion?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was my first one. The second one was a little more pointed. That's when people found out what roadside bombs were.
Right.
And that's well, you guys got to find them. We're like, cool, we found them. Now what?
What year was that? Your second deployment?
Oh goodness. Second one, I was in the Army. That one was, oh my God, 304 maybe.
What I love hearing about stuff like that is we could have passed by each other.
Yeah.
And would never have known it. Isn't that so weird? You could have been on my plane flying somewhere.
Because you said you were in certain places, and I was like, I was there too.
Yeah, I was in Tikrit. I was everywhere. I mean, the C-130 goes everywhere. So
I was in Diwania. I was in Tikrit. I was in all the spots.
Yeah.
Not Kadena. You don't know where Kadena's at,
but what's the one? I always forget the name of it. The Fallujah airport.
Al-Taqadim.
Yeah, Al-Taqadim. We did a lot of work at Al-Taqadim.
I was there.
Just called it TQ.
TQ. That's right. Yeah, TQ out in Anbar, right in the.
So I mean, the second one we did have a mission. We were supposed to we were doing route recon. We were supposed to keep the roads saturated with combat engineer units to keep them from implanting IEDs. So it's the more they see us, the less they'd want to put the IEDs out there, and it worked relatively well.
Sure.
So say if my TBI was getting blown up a couple times, but so that was that. The last one in Afghanistan, that one was a little bit more what are we doing? That's when the doubt, not doubt, but the questions in my brain started to kind of click, like, and not so much as far as like what we were doing for from a conflict part. It was more like, do we really need to be here? Kind of a thing, because it was kind of like pointless because no one was directly engaging us. It was all the little like hit attacks or whatever. It was like, well, they just don't like us.
Yeah.
And they know they can't engage with us. So they're just being jerks at this point.
Well, I would, sorry, Jeremy, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, well, part of that was in 2005, their mission objective changed. Our mission objectives changed. And that was because we started to realize very, very quickly that there was no freaking WMDs.
Right.
We had already destroyed pretty much the entire country, pretty much every province in the area. And it started to go into, because I remember when we landed into TQ and then pushed into Fallujah, back into Fallujah again the second time in September of 05, the mission went from we're no longer looking for weapons of mass destruction. It's now win the hearts and minds. And that's because we were now trying to rebuild what we just destroyed. So it's better to win the hearts and minds and get them to work with us and help us out than go back into fighting a second Fallujah, a second, wherever else has been attacked. But that was the whole point.
Which is funny because that was the bloodiest time of the war.
Yeah.
05, 06, 07 is when we had the spike of casualties, and we're supposed to be regime changing and winning hearts and minds, and it's getting bloodier and bloodier, and then the surge. But so with Tillman, he didn't like what he saw. Fine, I happen to agree with him. He came back from that deployment, and here's the other thing he did. The NFL and the DOD said, right, so the DOD doesn't want to lose this guy, right? Because he's poster boy in their mind. He's not in his mind. He's just doing his job.
Right.
NFL and the DOD says, hey, you did your job. You're a patriot. Go back to the NFL. You don't have anything else to prove. You proved enough. Go back to the NFL. Remember, a $3.6 million contract.
Yep.
He said no. He said, nope, I'm going to finish my enlistment. I'm going to do what I came here to do. And he turned it down. And that decision ultimately cost him his life.
Right.
So then he goes over to Afghanistan.
Yep. Completely
different war, different rules of engagement, different everything. Well, I guess what we'll do is we'll take a pause real quick, and then we'll get into what happened there, because it gets pretty bad. But until then, did you have any coffee this morning, Frank? No, because you don't drink coffee, do you?
No.
I can't look at my.
Are you gonna get? Okay, go ahead.
My mornings. So I get up at 6 a.m. I don't like it. Even when I was in the military. Yeah, in the military. We'd get up whenever we had to get up. Like if we were on crew rest for a mission, it could be 3 a.m. Never liked it. Never. I don't care. My brain just does not like to wake up, I would say, before 8:30 a.m. It's just weekend comes, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday up at 6. Saturday, actually I don't even use the alarm, because like my eyes will open. I'm like, at 6 o'clock, I got to go to work. Right. Why bother trying to get any more sleep? I got to go to work. Saturday, I just sleep straight through. My eyes open at 8:30, and I can't talk to anyone for about, I would say it's about 2 hours. Now, mind you, that overlaps with my job. So when I get to work, I need coffee in the morning. And I don't like that coffee I'll drink it if I have to, but you go to the store, your store brands, your major brands, they start in a factory, then they go to a warehouse, and then it's picked up. Now it's on a truck and it's driving here and there. And by the time you're getting it, you're what is this? What is this dry, flavorless caffeine? Does the job. Sure. Does the job. I'll give them that. Now I'll get into my read. If you're still out there drinking that sad, watery coffee that tastes like it was brewed through an old sock and barely gets you out of bed, then it's time to upgrade to 22 Sierra Coffee Company. Veteran owned, family run, and genuinely committed. 22 Sierra Coffee doesn't just make amazing coffee. They make a difference too by supporting veteran health and wellness events across the USA, putting boots on the ground to assist in rescue recovery of Hurricane Helene. That was me.
That was you.
These guys are committed to making a difference. And let's be clear, This isn't close your eyes and chug it down coffee. It's rich, bold, and deliciously smooth. There are many carefully crafted blends to choose from, like their dark roast, aptly named Death from Above. This blend was created to honor the brave men and women of the airborne community, making it the perfect gift for any veteran, active duty service member, or coffee lover who appreciates the sacrifices and bravery of those who served. Every bag of beans you buy supports nonprofits that help veterans gain community. Wait, hold on. In the community, gain access to the help they need. I thought I was going to make it through, but
You were doing great.
Thank you.
I still
Thank you.
believe in you.
So every sip is a small salute to the ones who served. If you want coffee that delivers and gives back, grab a bag of 22 Sierra coffee. Listeners of the 20 of the 21 Gun podcast. I love how there's 22 and 21. That never messes me up. Listeners of the 21 Gun podcast get 10% off their order by using promo code 21gun at checkout. That's 22sierracoffee.com. Use promo code 21gun. Get 10% off. Get some good coffee, help out some veterans, and everybody wins. And then when you wake up and people don't want to talk to you, at least you're caffeinated. At least it doesn't feel like you just woke up. Now you feel like you've been empowered by the spirit of the bean.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So I was debating on how to start this next part of the story. So what I'll do is I'll start with Tillman's Silver Star Award. Now, the date of the award is April 28th, 2004. That's the day the award was given out.
The citation?
The citation.
All right. You want me to read it? I have it here.
I have it too right here. Why, you don't think I can read out loud?
No, I didn't say
I
that.
can read out loud. Can you read out loud? Let's hear you read
Sure.
out loud. Start with Corporal Patrick D. Tillman, United States Army.
Okay. Well, the President of the United States, authorized by an act of Congress, July 9, 1918, act amended by the act of July 25, 1963, takes pride in presenting the Silver Star posthumously to Corporal Patrick D. Tillman, United States Army, for gallantry in action while serving with the 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment during action in Afghanistan on 22 April 2004.
Stop.
Oh, okay.
22 April 2004. This
Okay.
came out 28 April 2004. The Silver Star is one step below the Medal of Honor. In fact, a lot of Medal of Honors, the Silver Star is kind of like a holding place
Yeah.
before they get bumped up to that. It is a very, very prestigious award. It's
is.
up there. In 4 days, is that common for someone to have an action on the 22nd of April and most likely before the body is home or just after it arrived, they're being awarded the Silver Star?
No. And the reason I say it's not normal is because, one, the level of the award.
Right.
So again, I don't think people quite understand. Like, people look at, we call it fruit salad. So you look at someone's chest in the military and they have like all their awards and medals and ribbons and all that stuff. We call it fruit salad. When you look at that, the first thing vets do is they look at all of them and they scan you up and down, and they can pretty much tell what type of a person you were based on, like, you know, your ribbon rack. For some, when you look at Tillman's awards, so you have a Bronze Star equivalent with the Meritorious Service Award. I'm looking at that one. You have the Purple Heart there, and then you have a Silver Star. And then the rest of them are just like the basics that, you know, pretty much everyone gets because, you know, who he was and where he was with. And the speed that it happened, it's not normal.
Right.
Because when you're telling someone, hey, I want to give this person a Silver Star, you're basically saying, hey, this guy was good. He just missed getting a Medal of Honor.
Right.
Like, that's literally what you're saying. This
Okay.
person is like right below a Medal of Honor.
So that's your first clue that something's going on
Yep.
here. Okay. So begin after April 22nd, 2004.
Against an armed enemy while serving as a rifle team leader in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. I know you were going to stop me. Caught between the crossfire of an enemy near ambush, Corporal Tillman put himself in the line of devastating enemy fire as he maneuvered his fire team to a covered position from which they could effectively employ their weapons on known enemy positions. His audacious leadership and God, there's a lot of fluff in here. His audacious leadership and courageous example under fire inspired his men to fight at great risk to their own personal safety, resulting in the enemy's withdrawal, his platoon's safe passage from the ambush kill zone, and his mortal wound. Corporal Tillman's personal courage, tactical expertise, and professional competence directly contributed to his platoon's overall success and survival. In making the ultimate sacrifice for his team and platoon, Corporal Patrick D. Tillman reflected great credit upon himself, the Joint Task Force, and the United States Army.
Now, real quickly, we're not trashing Tillman for this.
No,
this wasn't his
not at
choice
all.
to have this. Here's the problem. According to his teammate and friend, Russell Baer, he said it was completely false. And as it turns out, it was completely false. So right there, this guy gets killed. There's a huge, like everyone, don't talk about it. A Silver Star gets bumped up. And within a few days, I can't remember what day it was, they had a memorial service. I think it was in DC. And they're reading this. They're playing it up. They're making him, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, they're turning him into Audie Murphy, into, I know Ted Williams lived, but the idea Ted Williams is a Major League Baseball player, greatest hitter of all time, in my opinion, the splendid splinter. But no, I don't think that's opinion. That's fact. Ted Williams, greatest hitter of all time. Come on, no one hit. What did he hit? 406.
I mean, Bobby Hustle was. I mean, come on, Pete Rose was a hitter.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
a
and
gambler.
you also had what's old dude, Glenn,
Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris. But I mean, no
he had
one
some
hit.
hitters, man. Tony Glenn was a hitter.
No one hit Gwynn. Yeah, no one hit at the level though. I mean, and Teddy Williams, he. This isn't gonna. We're gonna go off on this, but he hit for 4 decades. And he, anyways, the reason why I bring him up is he left Major League Baseball, joined the Marine Corps, became a fighter pilot, and flew missions over there.
You did. I was going to bring that up later too.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys though that fits the bill that Americans want to see. Teddy baseball, serving his country, flying combat missions, putting his life on the line. That's who they wanted. That's who the politicians, the generals, they knew. And Patrick knew when he signed that form, which we talked about earlier, that said, I don't want full military honors. I don't want any of this, because he didn't want to happen what actually ended up happening. And so the first clue is the Silver Star citation. After Tillman's death. So, all right, this might be a little out of order, but we'll get to it. After Tillman's death, so 22nd, he's killed. They have a soldier's cross ceremony in the desert. And within 2 hours, Tillman, Russell Baer, who's his best friend, so Tillman's body, Russell Baer's best friend, and his brother, Kevin, which another aspect that people don't realize. Kevin was part of the same regiment. I don't know if the same platoon. I don't think they would put 2 brothers in the same platoon, but he was actually part of the mission that he got killed in, which I think is crazy to put 2 brothers in the same. Jeremy, you and your brother weren't in the same unit, right?
Oh, Lord, no, not just that, but he also got dishonorably discharged before he even made it to the fleet.
Whoops. Well, it all started way back with the Sullivan brothers in World War II. Who thought of this? Let's put 5 brothers on a Navy ship. And then it sunk, and the family lost all 5 boys in one incident. So they don't even, from what I understand, and I'm getting this completely wrong because it happened here, they don't even like to put brothers out in a combat deployment together. But here, both These guys were in the same regimen, and I would assume they were in different platoons, but we'll get to that in a minute. So immediately, and Russell Baer, who was part of the action that got Tillman killed, was told, shut up. Don't say anything. Don't talk to Kevin, because Kevin was part of the first stick in this situation. Don't tell anyone. When you see the family, keep it tight-lipped. And he did, which, you know the truth. You know that the Silver Star is completely false, and you go and stand in front of the family. What do you do? Like, what? I'm not going to fault Russell Baer, because he's got colonels and generals telling him, don't say a word, but you're standing in front of the family who's torn apart right now. What do you do? I can play Monday morning quarterback and say, well, I would tell him what happened. Would you? I don't know. Like, would you say the truth of what happened if you're sitting there looking the family in the eye, knowing that you are still under the UCMJ and you've been told to not say a word?
I would, hindsight being the wonderful thing that it is, I would love to say that I would, but
Yeah, I would like to say I would. I would hope I would.
Given the level that they're at, and again, you have a lot of, you know, you got a lot of shiny stuff, a lot of constellations and stars looking at you, full birds, we call them pissed off chickens, staring at you, telling you to shut up.
Yeah.
And they do it cloaked, it's surrounded by senior, very high senior non-commissioned officers, enlisted also there, kind of giving you that intimidation factor. So you're put like in, and I could tell you a story that one of my old commanders tried.
A true story. I haven't been able to find who that person was or the story, but that's what it's reported. He contacted Tillman's mom. Yeah, it's Danny, and broke the story to her. There was suspicion that he was killed by friendly fire. So this gets out. And so they start asking the brass, right? The brass is, it's Pat Tillman's dead. People want to know. Reporters are going to ask questions. There's going to be press conferences. Lieutenant General Philip Kissinger, actually, do you know what? I'm going to give him his current rank. Be my Major General. That's how you figure out generals, by the way. Brigadier, you say, be my little general. Yep. Brigadier, exactly, Major, Lieutenant, and then General. So this guy was a Lieutenant General. I'm not going to give him that rank because it was taken away and they still listed as that. He's a Major General, 2 stars, 3 stars. Come on, who cares? Anyway, so Brigadier General Philip Kensinger had to explain why the story was reported incorrectly to journalists. He said, well, first reports are incorrect. Now, if something happens and an after action report is sent up the chain of command, he's 100% correct. Kensinger is correct there. But what you're talking about is there were 12 enemy combatants. This guy says there were 18. We were on the north side of the hill. We were actually on the west side of the hill. Like, these are the little things they figure out when they put it back together and go, okay, so yeah, reports aren't correct, but no enemy seen, fratricide, some things are incorrect. Come on. It's a completely fabricated story. So this dude, right from the get-go, and we'll find out that he knew exactly what happened, just continued to lie to the family and lie to the public when they asked him about it. Yep. The family asked then, why give him a Silver Star, right? In most cases, it's awarded for gallantry in action against the enemy of the United States. This Silver Star is a big deal. They wanted to know, well, do you know what? Here's an example. Well, do you know what? I don't want to do that. It's going to take too long. It's going to give you an example of what an actual true Silver Star is, but I think we've covered that a lot. So she decided, this is Danny, decided, they wouldn't say why they gave him the Silver Star. If there was such discrepancies in the 2 reports, they wouldn't even tell her exactly what happened, but she was given boxes. I think it was 6 or 7 full binders of after action reports. And they said, here, if you want to know, you figure it out yourself. She opens it up, redacted. It's like, then redacted, headed redacted, with redacted to, and they're like, what are we supposed to do with this? So she was smart enough. She met up with a guy named Stan Goff, this guy was an operator. He was a retired soldier and a blogger, like Ranger, Vietnam, South America, like, your typical 70s and 80s old school MP5 carrying snake eater. He sits with her and he's like, all right, well, I can read this stuff. I know this language. And like a crossword puzzle, they would count letters and then look and try to find, okay, it's there. They're speaking to the platoon commander. Okay, now we know this guy's name. And look at other reports, and they just matched it that way, and they deciphered the entire thing. And with that, they figured out that it was grossly negligent. Testimonies of the troops who killed Tillman said that they didn't positively ID who they were shooting at, but just wanted to be in a firefight. So here it is pieced all together. This is what happened according to witness testimony, the redacted files, and the after action reports. All right. So compare this to the Silver Star, where, if we can just paraphrase it, he charged up a hill against withering enemy fire, whatever it said, and engaged enemy Taliban and was killed. Commanders at a remote base over the objections of the men and their leaders on the ground, ordered the platoon to split into 2 convoys. So Kevin is actually in the same platoon as Pat. That's his brother. The first with Pat was to go through a narrow, steep, foreboding canyon to arrive by dusk at a village and search the next day for enemy fighters and weapons caches. So they're going forward. The second with his brother Kevin was to follow just behind via a different route. They were supposed to go, let's just, for simplicity's sake, here's a big mountain, here's the pass going up to the village. They're going to take a completely different route and meet up with them the next day, right? So no chance of misidentifying troops or them, any blue on blue situation. But unbeknownst to the first convoy, the second one diverted onto the same route just a few minutes. This is like worst case scenario. Just a few minutes after the first convoy made it out of the canyon unscathed. Moving slowly at 1.5 miles an hour to accommodate the towing of the Humvee through the rocky terrain, the second convoy was ambushed. This is a point of contention. There are people in the second half of the platoon that said they heard a gunshot, which could easily have been a negligent discharge, could have been maybe someone taking a shot at them, but it wasn't a PKM raking the platoon. It wasn't an actual engagement. They heard fire, and then they turned and they returned fire. And you guys and your Marines maybe can help me out here. I would assume if you hear a shot coming off of this ridge up here, everyone's going to turn their guns up there and give suppressing fire to start laying into the area, right? And the point is because you don't see what you're shooting at. You're just trying to say, hey, we're here. Don't attack us. Right. And then if they decide to, then, you've already engaged the enemy and you can continue. That's right? Is that okay? So that's what I assume happened. So Tillman is only a few clicks up the canyon with his unit. They hear that. So gunshot, explode, something went off. The second half of the platoon starts lighting up the canyon. Tillman's platoon hears that. So that's just to kind of set where you are. Platoon members in the first convoy, Tillman's convoy, heard gunfire and rushed to a position on the ridge, looking back toward the canyon and the gunfight, accompanied by platoon mate Brian O'Neill, that guy got railroaded, and an allied Afghan militiaman, Saeed Farad. Farad was situated about 10 feet in front of Tillman and was armed with an AK-47 assault rifle. I don't know why they call it that, but the preferred weapon of Afghan fighters. That's key too, right? So there is an Afghan with an AK. Whether allies or enemies. Oh yeah. Okay. Whatever. So now let's paint this picture. You've got the canyon. You've got Tillman here. They work up a ridge line. They're not under fire. In fact, at one point, Tillman turned to Bear and said, can I take off my flak vest and everything? Like, do I need all this gear? Because we're huffing up this point to try to get to the mouth of the canyon where second platoon is coming through, or the second half of the platoon is coming through. They don't know it's second half. They think it's the enemy coming up that way. They wanted a vantage point to look down on them. They're not firing. No one's shooting. In fact, they said that, I think it was O'Neill said that they could have all engaged the second half of the platoon and killed them to save their lives, but they wouldn't, obviously. So they weren't.
They didn't have PID.
They weren't. Yeah, they weren't firing. A crappy situation. You die or they die. I guess you have to take the honorable way out, I guess, if that's what you're going to call it. It's important to know there's a couple issues here. Oh yeah, we already talked about that. Second platoon, were they ever engaged? They don't know. Either way, I don't think second platoon's wrong here either. They were in a valley with a disabled Humvee, and all they hear is gunshots, right? Again, what started it, no one knows. So I don't think at this point, in fact, I don't think through this whole situation, and it's through my own ignorance, if anyone is truly grossly negligent. Maybe there is. I don't know. Okay, so
I'll say yes, and I'll say why. I'll let you finish, but I'll tell you why. But yes.
Okay, so when Tillman, O'Neill, and Farad, so I guess Bear stayed back, heard the fire, they ran up over the ridge where their own Humvees were. No, they didn't. They left the Humvees back. They were all by themselves. Second platoon doesn't know that Tillman and his crew are up here on this ridge. They're literally right around the corner. So Tillman's crew sets up behind some rocks overlooking the mouth of the canyon. As the soldiers of the second convoy emerge from the canyon, looking into the setting sun, another bad situation. Tillman's up here. the sun is in his back. So now they see silhouettes. They fire toward the ridge, prompted in part by the sight of an Afghan firing an AK-47. We don't know if he was firing in the general direction. Tillman shouted and threw a smoke grenade to signal his comrades to stop. Can you tell the difference between an American and an Afghan or a Russian? I don't know what they're using. Smoke grenade.
So you're given what's called fragos and warnos, and within those fragmentation orders and warning orders, within that you have plans. So like if things go left, here's your smoke for this. Here's your smoke for this. So if they should have known, hey, if I see green smoke, that's friendly. If I see white smoke, or if I see yellow smoke or red smoke or whatever, that's discussed before you depart. So those are like your literally to prevent what happened.
Right.
So the reason he yelled out was to say, hey, stupid, stop shooting at us. Here's the smoke we discussed earlier. I'm friendly.
Okay. Well, that didn't get through apparently.
Right.
Because all right, the firing initially stopped. Tillman started yelling, "I'm Pat effing Tillman," over and over. But second platoon teams either didn't hear, they must have not have heard. There's no reason why they would have killed their own guy. They then maneuvered closer to the three men. So they're behind what's called defilade. They just like as tall as this coffee table here. I've seen photographs. It's not very tall at all. So that's what, 18 inches, if that. They're hunkered down behind that. Again, not firing according to Tillman's team. They maneuvered closer and they opened up with their machine guns. Pat Tillman, along with Farad, also 27, were shot dead by the American comrades. Friendly fire. Many of Tillman's platoon mates knew almost immediately what caused his death, but were told not to discuss it. A standard requirement pending investigation. Okay. And told Kevin, now this is the other thing. So they bring Kevin up almost immediately. They go, holy crap, we killed Pat Tillman. Like the one thing you're not supposed to do, right? Not kill another soldier, but please not Pat Tillman. But they did. They killed Pat Tillman. They brought Kevin up and he just sat next to the body until they kind of, figured out what was going on. The Army then misled the Tillman family and the world. So that's what happened. They tried to use his identity for political purposes, the exact thing he told them not to do. The day after he was killed, news cameras were on his wife's front lawn before what's it called? The people that come and notify. I don't remember what that position's called, but an officer, usually senior enlisted guy, will go to the house with the chaplain and notify. Yeah, news cameras were there before that even happened. Casualty assistance officers, this is another one, were there to compel Marie, his wife, to sign off for an Arlington burial with full military honors. They knew full well they have his paperwork, yet they were there trying to get her to sign off on this nationally pomp and circumstance burial, which he didn't want. Part of me says, yeah, you are the military's property, right? As a GI, as whatever you want to call it these days. But after you die, that contract's null and void, right? Take care of me, bury me, do whatever I asked you to do, but I'm my family's now, because right. I no longer serve a purpose if I'm dead, unless according to the military you do, especially when you're someone like Pat Tillman. Goff, that's the guy, the Vietnam guy who helped out the mom. His quote was, his death didn't belong to the family. It was the Pentagon's to interpret. They held a memorial service in DC. I think it was DC. Politicians said their remarks. Most of them got Tillman completely wrong. They made him out to be John Wayne. They made him out to be a Christian. The brother got up and spoke. Now this is one of the videos, Jeremy. This is link 1. Explicit. This is explicit. We're trying not to use explicit language, but I mean, I'm just going to let it play the way it was. But his youngest brother, Pat Tillman, got up and set the record straight. And when you see this, it's kind of refreshing. It's sad, but it's refreshing that he said this stuff. But go ahead. There's no sound. No sound, Jeremy.
There's no sound. Hold on, I'll bring it back up. I hate it when it does that. If it sits there for a while before we do any kind of
it cuts it
audio,
out.
It cuts it out. Yeah.
But to answer your question from earlier.
Oh yeah. Well.
There was negligence, 100%. They screwed it up from the communication. Obviously, there wasn't communication. Somebody didn't speak up when they talked about the route, because there's no way you have a defined route.
Okay.
And then you end up wrong and going on and getting on. So you invited that parity for them to get onto that route. And if, say, I'm on path B, like we're supposed to, like me and you like we're here, and I'm here on this route, you're here on this route, and I'm ahead, and you're supposed to come around and follow to get here. Let's say there was a land, erosion, and you can't go. That's what you have a radio for.
Right.
To say, hey, Big E, I can't go on my route. I'm gonna be tailing Charlie on you. I'm right behind you.
Right.
Just to kind of give me a heads up.
Yet some of the documents that they pulled were interviews with the people who had shot him, and they said they had no positive ID of enemy. They just wanted to get into the firefight.
There's a lot of that too.
Yeah.
So
okay, let's hear what Richard Tillman had to say.
And you will see him again when a loving God reunites us all with the loved ones who preceded us in death.
The contrast to the memorial service should have been a warning shot to the military. You got people out there sort of speaking.
That's Goff.
Generalities.
Pat, your family doesn't have to worry anymore. You are home, you are safe, and you will not be forgotten.
And then you've got a brother coming up there, somebody who's willing to speak the brutality of that reality for them.
He was always giving gifts. Thanks, Pat. I didn't write shit because I'm not a writer. And I just want to say there's a lot of people here. Thanks. It was really amazing to be his little baby brother. Yeah, I'm not just going to sit up here and break down on you, but thanks for coming. Pat's a fucking champion, and always will be. Just make no mistake, he'd want me to say this. He's not with God, he's fucking dead. He's not religious, so thanks for your thoughts, but he's fucking dead. I don't regret any of that. As far as what I was thinking, I was just simply miserable. I was sad for my whole family. I was sad for my mom, my dad, Marie, Kevin. This isn't a production. It's my brother's service. I didn't plan on saying that. It just, he's not what these people wished he was. Everyone grabbed at Pat's death. Not necessarily just the military. Everybody grabbed at him. They just chose the wrong family to try to do it in front of.
What's funny is he's a children's author now.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's what I read. But yeah, I mean, and that just kind of what he said brings it in full circle, right? People have their idea of what a soldier is, and completely take out the truth. And sometimes you don't agree with it. Maybe you really want him to be the Christian warrior, to be the patriotic poster boy, but that's not who he was. And you can't have it. I mean, it's like I said, once your heart stops beating, that you're not owned by the government for their propaganda. And that's what they did to him. So Pat was obviously killed by friendly fire, October 22nd. Now here's where it gets damning for the U.S. military. Lieutenant General Stanley McChrystal, we all know that name, approved the Silver Star citation on April 20th, 2004, which gave a detailed account of the Tillman's death and paraphrased in the line of devastating enemy fire. But the next day, so he signed this Silver Star on the 28th. On the 29th, he sent a P4 confidential memo warning senior government members that Pat Tillman may have actually been killed by friendly fire. I can pull it up here because I won't be able to read it up there. But the P4, I don't know that acronym. I've never heard it. I assume it means something. Everything means something in the military. So the guy who signed off under enemy fire wrote this: And Jeremy, this is linked too. I mean, it's just a paper. I don't know if it'll look like anything when you bring it up, but okay. Yeah, that works. Sir, in the aftermath of Corporal Tillman's untimely yet heroic death in Afghanistan on April 22nd, 2004, it is anticipated highly possible that Corporal Tillman was killed by friendly fire. This potential finding is exacerbated by the unconfirmed reports that POTUS and the Secretary of the Army might include comments about Corporal Tillman's heroism in his approved Silver Star Medal in speeches currently being prepared. Not informing the specifics surrounding his death, the potential that he might have been killed by friendly fire in no way detracts from his witnessed heroism, which I'll give him that. Like, if you actually listen to his people, he heard the gunfire and he charged towards it. He ran towards gunfire. He did not cower, and he went into the area. I mean, it just sucks that it was their own people shooting, but he did his job. Corporal Tillman was killed in a complicated battle space geometry involving 2 separate Ranger vehicle serials traversing through severe terrain along a winding 500 to 600 foot defile in which friendly forces were fired upon by multiple enemy positions. Not true. Corporal Tillman disembarked from his vehicle and in support of his fellow Rangers demonstrating. Okay, so he comes out and says, hey, if you're a politician, George Bush, don't recite the Silver Star, because I know it's not real. And interestingly, it was like a day after that P4 came out, Bush did make a statement, and yet he just talked about a football player that sacrificed his career to go over and fight for it. Didn't mention anything about it. So this P4, written by General McChrystal, went all the way through the ranks. Everyone knew about this. So it's proof that they knew that this was all false. Senior commanders within the U.S. Central Command, including former commander of the United States Central Command, General John Abizade, another name we know, were notified of the P4 memo, which described Tillman's highly possible fratricide 4 days before 4 days before that we just watched. Oh, look, your camera's got little lines on it, Frank.
Oh, I see.
Squirrels. So that's what someone tweeted me and said that. So that camera is broken. Let's move on. So that was the first the Silver Star, then the P4 the next day. All were known before we saw those people get up and just spout BS from their mouths in front of the family who just lost their son, who weren't told the truth about what happened.
Right.
Like, makes me upset. Jones reported that, I don't know who Jones is. Jones reported that members of Tillman's unit burned his body armor and uniform in an apparent attempt to hide the fact that he was killed by friendly fire. His notebook, in which, according to author John Krakauer, Tillman had recorded some of his thoughts on Afghanistan, was also burned, a blatant violation of protocol. Several soldiers were punished for their actions by being removed from the United States Army Rangers. Of course, your junior enlistees are gonna, and probably junior officers are gonna get fired. Tillman's family was not informed of the findings that he was killed by friendly fire until weeks after his memorial service, although some senior Army officers knew of the fact prior to the service. According to Krakauer, where men win glory, I'm going to have to read that. The extensive cover-up that followed Tillman's death included the military's order to Tillman's comrades to lie at the family funeral. Tillman's parents have sharply criticized the Army's handling of the incident. Tillman's father believed that the Army purposely interfered with the investigation because of the effect it could have on their recruiting efforts. He said, after it happened, all the people in positions of authority went out of their way to script this. They purposely interfered with the investigation. They covered it up. I think they thought they could control it. Then they realized that their recruiting efforts were going to hell in a handbasket if the truth about this got out. They blew up their poster boy. He also blamed high-ranking Army officers for outright lies. On March 4th, 2006, the Inspector General directed Army to open up a criminal investigation into Tillman's death. They were trying to figure out if it was negligent homicide. In March 26, 2007, the Pentagon released the report on the events surrounding Tillman's death. We emphasize that all investigations establish the basic facts of Corporal Tillman's death, that it was caused by friendly fire, that the occupants of one vehicle in Corporal Tillman's platoon were responsible, and that circumstances on the ground caused those occupants to misidentify friendly forces as hostile. None of the investigations suggest that Corporal Tillman's death was anything other than accidental. Our review, as well as the investigation recently completed by the Army CID, obtained no evidence contrary to those findings. His brother Kevin ended up testifying before the United States House Committee. House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. to just kind of wrap this whole thing up, one person ended up getting slapped on the wrist. It was that General Kinzinger, who lost 1 star. So he was the commander of what's the Army Special Operations Command? Air Force, it's AFSOC, but I don't.
Is it SOAR?
Maybe it's just no. SOAR is the Special Operations. I forget what that stands for. It's the Air Regiment. But either way, 3-star general. He was in charge. He loses a star. At this point, he's already retired.
Right.
Okay, what he gets a cut in pay, which they're probably making 200,000 a year
Easily. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's fine. He's fine, although he does get the slap on the wrist, but no one knows his name now, and that's it. So here's the deal. The cover-up tainted a story. The family doesn't want Pat to be a mythological legend. People knew, and that's the other point, I guess, of this. So the Army had their vision of what it was supposed to be. The family had the truth. And I think there's a third group that need answers as well. And those are us, right? Pat he was an extraordinary person. He was a public person. He had fans. He had people that were invested in knowing about him, and they need to know the truth too. They also need, and I don't want to sound like contradictory, but they need closure, right? They need to know that this guy that did something that none of us, and we just talked about it, like, would we even do what he did? Would they be able to do that? And can they have closure in it too? Does that make sense? Like that there is a public access aspect to this. So all in all, I guess the overall theme is Pat Tillman was selfless. He did things that no one knows if they would do unless they were faced with the situation.
Oh yeah.
He went to the tip of the spear. The Army didn't like that, how it ended, and the family had to suffer. And I don't know what the lesson is for that. I just know that it's a story that needs to be told and people need to know about it.
I mean, it's, to me, like I said, this is one of the stories that always bothered me. I actually had an old first sergeant who, for his own reasons, vehemently disliked Pat Tillman because he was that type of person that bought into the big Army, obviously, because he got his diamond. I think he went on to be a sergeant major. So in his brain, with Tillman saying the things that he said, kind of like was wrong. Does not in any way justify
right, but
fratricide.
He was never public about what he said.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but for me, it kind of scared me because I'm like, that was Pat Tillman.
Yeah.
So in my brain is like, well, what's gonna happen to little old me?
I know.
Like, I'm just little old staff sergeant, just little
something
cog in the wheel.
Something controversial has to do. It's Control Alt Delete.
Right. Yeah.
Frank who?
Yeah, I no longer exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like I said before, because I've been on the end of a higher up trying to make you take the fall, like the whole intimidation thing, like wall of senior staff NCOs behind me, and then and field grade officers all telling me like, I mean, we know you didn't do this, but we need you to say this. No, you don't.
Right.
So I think what it was is, because I've been sitting here thinking about, because I remember I said earlier, what I said about they should have just told the truth. I think listening to it more and give it more 2020 hindsight, I think I know why they didn't want to say the truth, because it makes them look grossly incompetent.
Right.
From on every level, from whoever was involved with the communications for the maneuver, whoever set up the maneuver, whoever didn't listen to the Joes when Joe says this is stupid, we don't need to do this, to the obvious person who needs more land nav because they didn't know where they were going. the comms people need, talking to, because obviously communications didn't work because nobody was talking.
Right.
Say, hey, I'm behind you now. And then when you get into the higher ups, they all need to go, because you not only allowed all of that to go wrong under your watch, you then tried to say, let's just say this happened.
Yeah.
And then to be okay with it at the same time.
Could it possibly be that Tillman in his character was shown in this situation to be better than the U.S. Army?
1,000%.
Yeah.
Because what you then tried to do, you tried to make, because this is why I think they tried to pressure, this is my opinion, why I think they tried to pressure his wife into the full ceremony and this and the third, and the Silver Star, and then the big grandiose, open funeral. I think they tried to make it bigger than what it was, so that way, when the truth finally came out, because you can only keep something like this under wraps but for so long, people won't remember the whisperings of the truth when the lie was so big and bold.
Right.
So I think that's my opinion on why it went that way.
I think I don't think his character was I suppose if the lie was never caught, I don't know. I still think the truth is better. Like,
yeah,
he would have gone down as like some grandiose hero. I think he still is. I think people might not like him knowing who he was, like that it didn't fit the description that they had in their minds. You know what I mean? But who cares? We're all different. We all have different opinions. The guy had integrity like no other. He could have saved his life and played NFL. He could have retired from the NFL. Who knows? Who knows what could have happened? Been a millionaire, raised kids. In the story, the guy O'Neill kept saying, he kept speaking out about what had happened. So they kicked him out of the Rangers, and he ended up finishing off his career on a desk. No one literally in any of this situation ended up with a good story. I think his wife remarried and finally had kids, and still just all of it is sad. When you look at it, when you look at what it could have been and what it became. Yeah, it's just a tragic story, but yeah, I don't know. Tillman, I should have wore it tonight. The only NFL jersey I have is Tillman.
Do you think it's also an indictment on the unrealistic expectations that society puts on the military and what they want their military to look and be?
Yeah, I think to a degree, but I think that brings us back to what we talked about earlier, your YouTube celebrity veterans. Yeah. And a guy could serve, say, 8 years, come back, and in future episodes, we'll get deep into this, but one of the biggest issues with mental health is they miss their unit, they miss their camaraderie, and then they sit there and people are saying, thank you for their service. And they're like, I was a truck driver, you know what I mean? And I'm supposed to fit this person that I'm not. And maybe you're a truck driver that under fire, you ducked down and never shot your weapon. I mean, people can say what they want. I will never disparage anyone for how they act under combat. You don't know how you're going to react.
Right.
But you come home and you say, I can't stack up to these people. Not only do I miss this family I had, but I was supposed to be so much more. I'm supposed to fit this image that Americans have for me because of Hollywood. And I don't fit that. And the only way really to come out of that is to get with other veterans and talk, and you'll find out 99% of them are just normal dudes. Yeah. A small amount had some extraordinary circumstances, but for the most part, we were given a job, we told to do it, we did it, and we came home.
Yep.
And you should be proud of that, because you're 0.45% of the population since global war on terror. Less than 0.5% of Americans actually did that. And yeah, you should never look bad on that. So with that said, what we like to say at the end of our pre-brand, not our rebrand, we're going, that's what this was. This is what 21 Gun was originally. And I think it's good. I liked it.
Yeah.
But at the end of every show, we say, hey, go through your phone, find someone you haven't reached out to in a while. Just check in, just be like, hey man, how are you doing? Because you never know, and we've played it on past episodes. You never know when you're going to reach out to someone when they really need it, and that's the whole point. That's how all these programs, all these talk therapy, all these little things they do. The only thing that really works is boots on the ground, and that could mean just reaching out and texting someone and saying, "What's up, man? I miss you." That's all I got. What do you got?
Thank you all for the loads of participation in the chats here. People saying they drink Folgers.
You drink 22 Sierra coffee now.
My bad.
Promo code.
It was Jeremy that said it.
Oh, it's 21 gun.
To Duke saying he spent 3 months trying to get into the Air Force, failed the drug test, took 2 weeks to get into the Army after that. Let's see what else we had here. Saying the best spoof of that was when the old Chappelle show had him eating Betty Crocker yellow cake mix from the podium.
Oh yeah,
I remember that. And just overall, guys, that we appreciate, any and all, just all the communication in the chat, all the communication on Twitter and on YouTube. We really need y'all's help to build the YouTube up so that way we can get those subscriptions to a certain level, so we can open up the super chats so you guys can be even more interactive with us.
Still working on the Discord.
Yep, we're still working on the Discord. But overall, do us a favor. Let us know how you like this new format. We're trying to ease away from the dark side and get into things that are a lot more positive. Talking about military, veteran stuff, VA stuff, just general overall like health and wellness of veterans.
Yeah, shoot me an email, Kevin@21gun. You have to spell it out, 21gun.net. You might have a story. You might have someone that you might have a crazy story yourself, whatever. We'll have an episode. We've done it in the past where people just come on and tell their best stories.
Yeah.
One of them was a guy who fell. He ended up falling in a sewage canal or something.
Was it the porta potty?
No, that was me.
Yeah. My bad.
Yeah. And if I remember the story, had to swim to his boat or something. Yeah. Anyways, we hear crazy stories like that. Maybe we'll have an episode where you guys just come on and share your stories. But other than that, that's all I have for tonight. Jeremy, you got anything?
Nope, man. The only thing I gotta say is, as we move forward, it's so much better when people share the same positivity. As long as we're all on the same page, this will continue to grow, and I appreciate everyone coming by.
Awesome. And with that, we will see you next week. Should I give a hint who next week's veteran will be that we'll discuss? I'll just say I just heard the story. I don't know how I missed it. It blew my mind. The giant killer. That's all I'll say. Crazy story. And with that, good night.